Well, we are talking about the Uganda we want, and I told you I will come back with my guest, and he's already in the studio. He's going to share his perspective on the Uganda that he envisions, and I hope you will learn something and as well do something. You know, it's one thing to learn something, and it's another thing to do something. Some people learn and they don't do anything. And if you want, I believe the Uganda that we are looking out for is when someone learns something, and from what he or she has learned, he does something. I am so honored. The first time I sat down and listened to this man. He was speaking about, so passionately, about the education sector. And he's been in education for a long time. And many of you, you are where you are, especially some of you have big books. You call them big books. You have piled books at your home. It's because you went through an education system. And Uganda's got an education system. Our dear listeners and viewers, the person that we have hosted today, he experience when it comes to the education sector. And I want him to greet you. And from greeting you, definitely we will carry on our show today. He's called Dr. Droti Asile James, and he's working currently with the National Curriculum Development Center. And he's a chemistry specialist. Yeah. In other words, he's a scientist. You're the President Museveni's guys. Eh? It's good to have you, Doctor, on the show, the Uganda we want. Could you please greet our viewers and briefly tell us who is Dr. Droti Asile James?
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. Good evening, listeners and viewers. You have rightly introduced me. My name is Droti Asile James. They are very short names. Sometimes they confuse, but I love it. I work with the National Curriculum Development Center. I'm a teacher by profession. And like you said, I'm a chemist. And I studied first of all, chemistry at a bachelor's level. Then I did a master's of science in chemistry from Makerere University. I'm in the process of graduating, although people call me doctor. I'm pursuing a PhD in science education.
Oh, you're a doctor in the making.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have always said this. My name, Droti, is D-R-O-T-I. So people think it is that, but I think I'm about to get it. So nice being here on this talk show. And I think it is an appropriate talk show to prepare us as Ugandans to see what kind of Uganda do we want. I want to begin by saying that the Uganda we want...
Well, before you give me the Uganda that you want, I still want to know you more. Yes. It could be my mistake that I said briefly, but would love to know where does Doctor in the making Droti come from? Which primary school did you go to? During your years, did you have nursery? Do you still remember the school that you went to in nursery and secondary? Feel free. We want to know you before we hear the Uganda you want. We would love to know you more.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think...
mu Buganda wano tugamba tambula mungu omuganda. So I don't know where you're coming from, how you walk like.
Yeah. I come from United States of Arua.
You see? It's 10 or 12 hours journey if you come from.
Yeah, specifically from I come from Terego district.
Terego district.
I went to a primary school, which was very famous at the time, but in a rural setting, called Want Primary School. For the 7 years I was in that primary school, it was just a walkable distance to the school from my home. So I always had lunch because it was very near. And from there I went to a school for secondary. I went to Mvara Senior Secondary School, which is one of the most famous schools in West Nile for O level. And I proceeded to the same school for A level. And I sat my senior 6 at a very critical time when this country was getting a revolution where we are now in 1986. And I remember coming to do my senior 6 exams from exile in Sudan. So I just walked from Sudan to do exams on the day of briefing. That was 11th of May 1986. That's when we did our exams. I did sciences.
11th of May 1986.
Yes, that's when I sat my senior 6 examinations. And I did sciences, physics, chemistry, and biology with subsidy maths. And I moved because we didn't study for a long period of time, but we just came and did exams. Because if we didn't do exams, then we will have difficulties in repeating, because we had challenges of getting school fees. So I had to progress. I got some points, which was able to take me to an NTC, National Teacher Training College. So for my diploma in education, I went to NTC Kaliro, and from then I came back to teach, and I went to teach in St. Charles Lwanga Koboko as a diploma holder. And most interestingly, after teaching for 2 years, I was asked to teach A level.
Wow.
A level chemistry. I had 7.
With your diploma?
Yeah. I had 7 students. And
we are now in the 90s, I guess.
Yeah, this was now 1990 when I started to teach. Then in 92 is when they gave me A level to teach with my diploma.
Wow.
7 students, and 4 of them got principals, and the best got a C. And after...
Are they still alive? Are your students still alive?
Actually, very, very many of them are in very big positions. Like the commissioner, assistant commissioner, immunization, Minister of Health, is my first student, whom I taught at St. Charles Lwanga in Senior 4. And that time there were 80 students. And when I taught chemistry, 42 of them got distinction 1 and 2. And that's when the headmaster got encouraged and said, you can actually teach A level. And indeed, I taught A level.
Because you performed well in O level.
Yeah. So in 1996 is now when I joined Makerere University, ITech, to do my first degree, Bachelor of Education. And then I also went back to teach in Lwanga. Then I moved on to Varaesis, actually on Ombachi. Then I taught there for 3 years. Then I moved to Varaesis. And in 2003 is when I came to Makerere to do Masters of Science in Chemistry in chemistry. So I finished in 2006. And in 2009 is when I joined, first of all, to teach as a lecturer in Bustama University. I was teaching chemistry. Then part-timing in Chambogo University. You know, scientists are very scarce.
And by then they were scarce.
Yeah.
For now, at least.
At least
But
even then,
that time,
they are not as as many as we would expect in the kind of Uganda we would want to see.
Yeah, you can't compare them with those who did arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is the trend. And in 2009, October, is when I joined NCDC because there were some family issues. And that year was very blessed for me because my wife got a job with World Vision and was in the southern part of the country. Meanwhile, our children remained up country in USA. And I was supposed to be in Bustema University.
USA, United States of Arua.
Arua, yeah. But then I was, because of the family issues, and you know, the family is so binding. And because of that, I had to resign from Bustema when I got the job at NCDC. So that has been the trend. But fortunately, when I came to NCDC, I've had the opportunity to do another master's in education from Open University of Tanzania, where I did Masters of Education, Curriculum Design and Development. And later on I joined.
So with that diploma, well, the Americans call it a diploma, but here it is not a diploma. It's a degree, it's a certificate.
Yeah.
So with that certificate, you're able to work with NCDC.
Actually, I started to work at NCDC before I got the Masters of Education.
Well, you've been in, you've been teaching. I think they were, relying so much on your experience.
Yeah. So that is what has actually happened. And later on, I enrolled at Makerere University to do a PhD in science education at College of Education in School of Education in Makerere. So most likely next year, God willingly, I'll join, and I'll be graduating.
Wow. When I listen to your, to your background and how your life has been, someone is tempted to think everything has been smooth. But you mentioned something, you went into exile.
Yes.
Why don't you take you back? How did that happen? Why did you go why were you exiled? Why?
Actually, I went to exile twice because in 1980, there was an insurgency in West Nile. And during the time when the elections were going to take place.
The 1980 general elections.
So in October of 1980, there was an insurgency which swept the whole of West Nile. And of course, as young people, we couldn't remain because the government soldiers, and the forces at that time were UNLF. UNLF. And they are fighting with the remnants of Idi Amin soldiers. So they swept the whole of West Nile, and the government forces were forced to withdraw. And of course, when they reinforced, they were able to repulse the rebels. And that was the time when I went to the first exile in Congo.
DRC Congo. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that was 1981 to 1982.
Oh, so during that time, should we say that by then President Museveni had not gone to the bush?
No, I think he went to bush shortly after that.
Oh, 1981,
after 1981. But then for us, we were already now in exile. But those of us who got composed, we came back in 1983 only to do another exams, senior 4 exams. But I managed to get a first grade, then went to Mvara SS for A level. And when I was about to again sit exams in 1986, now this NRM government came, and they actually were the first people who were received, who encountered with the NRA then in Koboko. Because that was the day when we came from Sudan coming to take exams at Mvara SS, because we were able to hear it on the radio, UBC. So when we heard, I convinced my friends, and they were able to come back.
So I am seeing a binding kind of relationship between Uganda and South Sudan. South Sudan, during then, used to host some of our Ugandans.
Yeah.
So right now, if you see some of the South Sudanese, you should be happy because someone back then sow a seed, if I may use that word.
Incidentally, when I went to Congo and Sudan,
Yeah.
I didn't have opportunity to go to school. Actually, we are doing a lot better for the refugees that have come to Uganda. And we are catering, like right now as I talk, National Curriculum Development Center, in conjunction with World Child Canada, prepared a program called Accelerated Education Program to help the refugee community who have been out of school for one reason or the other to continue.
And it's going to be accredited.
It's already actually the first cohort of the Accelerated Education Program sat the exams last year, and a number of them passed. So this is a condensed program of the 4 years has been condensed to 2 years, so that after 2 years you can either sit for exams if you feel you are prepared, or you join the mainstream and do your O-level exams.
We are too hospitable.
So that is what has happened, and this kind of thing never happened for us when we were in exile. We were left at large, and that's why some of us had to come back, because you were just left at large. They give you food, but of course the conditions are not like here. So that is what happened.
Wow. Yeah, it's good to hear that, and I wanted to know more because you mentioned it, and I was interested to know why you went into exile. Well, our viewers and our listeners, this is Dr. Droti Asile James, a chemist. He's here to share his perspective with us on the Uganda that we want. You and I know you're eagerly waiting to hear from him. Doctor,
yes, please.
Let me bring back the microphone to you, and right away, which Uganda now do you want to see? You've been in the Uganda in the past, in the present, you are in that Uganda. Now I want to hear which kind of Uganda in future do you want to see, and also how can we achieve that Uganda that you're envisioning? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, in my view, the Uganda we want to see can really be shaped by the youth that we have today. In other words, if you look at the Uganda we have now, the population of the youth is far much more than the people who are now a bit old. In other words, the Uganda we have today has, I would describe, a digital native population. People who are born in the era of computers. Of course, with very few digital immigrants, those who are born before computers. So those who are born from 1985 are bigger in number than people who are born before computers. So we have a population of digital natives and a population of digital immigrants, I will describe. So because of this, if we're able to harness this demographic dividend and shape it in a way to harness this demographic dividend in such a way that we are able to integrate it with the natural resources that we're endowed with, then we can have a Uganda which will be, first of all, technologically developed. We'll have a Uganda which is going to be entrepreneurial, and definitely that will lead to an economic growth, which will make this country, conspicuous, I would say, in the region. So really, I envisage a Uganda that is going to be economically empowered with the kind of youth that we have today. Because in the world today, economic growth is hinged so much on technology, and is also hinged so much on the population that we have and the natural resources. And we're all blessed with these resources if they are well harnessed, if they are well utilized, and this can only be through education and technology. That's where we can propel this country.
So, Doctor, when you talk about the youth, I think someone out there would love to know what is that we are not doing right when it comes to really seeing value in the youth and how we can, use them to impact, the Uganda, and as well be able to achieve the economic growth that you're talking about. Let's begin from the problem. What are we not doing right?
What we are not doing right for the youth, in my view, is giving them the kind of education that can transform them to be youth or citizens who have employable skills, who can be competitive in the job market. In other words, preparing the youth through education, preparing the youth to adopt and adapt technology that can make them to be very competitive. Because if you look at the education system we have currently, and you'll find that it has been so much driven by examination, where you only remember and pass, write your exams, pass, but there's nothing tangible that you can do with that knowledge that you have acquired.
If you fail to remember something and you miss out, you're gone.
You're gone.
Yeah.
I always liken the education system that we have to organic chemistry. In organic chemistry, there's what we call as a chain reaction. When two species, opposite species react, the reaction stops instantly and it will not continue. That's how cramming is, and rote learning. That's what we have been promoting. Somebody does exams now, 2 or 3 days later, ask this person, what can you do with this knowledge? I can do everything. That's the answer.
I can do everything.
I can do anything. Actually, they say I can do anything. So, and yet, in this 21st century, when learning takes place, true, it has to lead to cognitive development, knowing.
Knowing, yeah.
But what do you do with the knowledge? You must be able to do something with that knowledge. So you must learn to do, to know, and you must also learn to do something with the knowledge. In other words, apply what you have learned in real life and be a useful citizen. So you should learn to know, learn to do, and learn to be, which means you must be a useful contributor.
Learn to know, learn to be, learn to do,
and learn to be.
And to be.
And also continue to be a lifelong learner, so that you don't stop learning. But if you look at what we have been taking the youth through, we have been preparing them to think that once you have gotten the grades, then you have arrived, which is not true. Because you should be able to have an education that transforms you to be a useful person in the society. But you find the reverse has been happening. That's why you find right now the youth, if you travel along the road, they're just seated there. And these are youth who have gone to school. But you see, they sit along the road doing what? Just trying to imagine that I would be like those people who are driving. Because they just sit there doing nothing. And it is very common, not only in one place. So the youth have been prepared to think it is only the papers. But what do you do with the papers that you get? This is what has been, actually, I want to thank the government of Uganda, the Ministry of Education and Sports particularly, and NCDC for bringing a new concept of a competence-based curriculum, which is all out to see that it prepares a learner to have skills, employable skills, skills that can help this learner not only to wait for a job, which will come from the government, because even then the jobs are not there now, but the people who are graduating are too many, and they can't all fit. So they should have something tangible. And I love what NCDC has done on behalf of the government, where they designed a curriculum with through what we call as the backward design. You think about what is it that I want this person to be before you talk about what this person should learn, so that you prepare a content for this learner to learn, appropriately preparing this learner to be a useful person in the society. Unlike the previous one, where we have a forward design. You begin with the content, then you begin with the process, and what you want this person to be comes last. So that's where they now say, I can do anything, because they're not prepared and tailored to be people who have the employable skills. So I think this was the best design, in my view, which can prepare the kind of people we want. And unfortunately, in this new curriculum, you will see that there's a profile of the learner you want to see that is clearly brought out. So every learning that takes place is trying to lead to that what? Profile that you have envisioned. So that you are deliberately preparing somebody to fit into the society, to learn, to do, and to be able to be a useful person. So that is what I think.
You learn, you know, and then you be.
Yeah. So that is the principle. And this is what we call as the pillars of learning in the 21st century. You don't just learn for the sake of getting exams. And the high-stakes exams has actually spoiled this country, because the people it's good to have a certificate to show that you passed through the system. But what do you do with this to support the society?
Yes. So if I may ask, Doctor, are you saying that we should, right now, we should make UNEB pack up its things and then, they go?
No, UNEB is doing the right thing. UNEB is there to
no
certify.
More testing.
Actually, now, even what UNEB is preparing for, to me, I love it, because they are attaching more weight, more importance to what happens in the class, what we call as the classroom-based assessment. That is where you are preparing somebody to understand concepts. You are preparing somebody to acquire the expected skills, the knowledge, the values, and attitudes. It takes place in the classroom. What UNEB comes, that's why they are giving little, or I would say smaller importance to the end of cycle, because the formation of the learner is in the class. Because when it comes to the end of cycle, how many hours do you take?
Is 3, 2,
2
2
hours.
2 hours and 45 minutes.
And does that form somebody to be what the person should be? Supposing I dropped out in senior 1, senior 2, will I still not be a useful person if I'm well formed in the class?
Yeah.
That's why we say in assessment. Assessment means you form this person. That's why in Latin it is called assidere.
Assidere, yes.
Meaning the teacher has to sit beside the learner to support the learner to improve in performance. Because once you have done the end of cycle exams, do you get the papers back to find where you went wrong? You can't get it back, which means it does not support formation of the learner. So the formation of the learner, transformation of the learner is through the process of teaching and learning. But the examination which comes at the end does not contribute a lot to forming the person. It is only to certify that so and so passed through here.
Yeah, the challenge I see there, Doctor, is yes, you're saying that UNEB is now emphasizing more work to be done in the classroom, but still they have not erased away the examination. And remember, our foundation has been, when it comes to assessment, you have to go through the national examinations. If you don't go through that, definitely you're like, you never went to school. So how, with that challenge, how can we tackle that challenge?
I think now we need a lot more sensitization to make the stakeholders understand that yes, examination is good. It is a subset of assessment.
So this time the examinations should be a subset of the assessment of this learner.
Yeah, that's why in the new
whole
curriculum,
package.
When the reform was done, the principle was curriculum, assessment, and examination. Assessment is for learning. Assessment is as learning. We call this formative assessment. And the importance of this formative assessment is, as I've said, to form, to shape, to transform the learner's understanding, the learner's behavioral change, the learner's skills, to prepare him or her to fit into the world of work, which is very, very, competitive. Because the world we're in today is actually very, very dynamic. Every other time things are changing. You don't know what's going to come next. It is ambiguous. It is complex. So this is this learner, the student, who want to prepare to fit into this kind of world. And so it does not only take assessment of learning, which is partly which comes at the end, at the terminal end of the learning and teaching process. So that will not prepare this person to fit into the ever-changing world. So we need to form them properly, even if because of situations or circumstances. If somebody dropped in between, these learners will be able to fit into the kind of world that we're in. And I think that's the more reason why we needed this transformation. We needed this reform to prepare the kind of people who will fit into the kind of into the world that we want, into the Uganda we want, which is which must always be progressing, which must always be growing in all aspects of economic growth and technological growth. And that can only be achieved through education, because you can see the population of the youth is so enormous. And if we don't prepare them now, then we can't have a Uganda that will grow. So we need to take advantage of this population, the resources that we have, so that we have a Uganda which is going to be, standing out in all aspects.
Yeah, as we progress through our dialogue, Doctor, I want you to talk about now the youth that went through the former kind of program, curriculum from the education sector, because now those that are going to go through the new reforms, probably we are looking at, is it 10 years? What is our projection? Is it 10 years from now?
Yeah, around there.
Around there, we'll be, having the Uganda that you are envisioning that is progressing. But now, how can we deal with the youth that we have now who never got a chance to go through the new curriculum that has, new reforms? How are we going to tackle that problem? Because now it's a problem that I see.
Yeah, I think that observation is right. We already have a youth population, I would say, that does not match with the trends of today.
Yeah, because of the education.
Because of the education
that they
entered in, they received. But interestingly, the people who studied in the earlier years, like during our time, I think our cadre is a little different, because the way we were brought up through our education system was almost to what we are having now in the new curriculum. Because I see when we were studying, we wouldn't be studying for very long hours. Like I was in a boarding school. Our lessons will start at 7:30 and we will stop at 1 in the afternoon. And the rest of the time was for us to do our own work. We will be taken through, they will give us work, we'll do our assignments and so on. So that prepared us to be we owned learning.
Yeah, what led to the change now that if you go to school, it's as if you've gone in prison?
I think eventually, I don't know. I think what happened was the commercialization of education turned things around. Because when, at that time, you wouldn't see so many private schools. But now when the privatization of education came on board, competition set in. And competition in terms of grades. Even right now as I talk, some school owners come to us and say, can you help us do a consultancy to see that our school is on top, so that we also appear on papers?
Wow.
But I always tell them, and they'll say, do you know people in UNEB who can help us put our names on the newspapers? But I always tell them, UNEB does not put schools' names on the papers. UNEB even does not publish the so-called best schools, the so-called best teachers. UNEB doesn't do that. Instead, what UNEB does is, how much has a school helped to transform learners from maybe a lower grade to an achieved grade? They can give a report about that. But not to publish, because when UNEB publishes the results,
everyone will have to look.
It becomes public. So anybody can do anything with that. So what I am trying to say is, the privatization of education, I think, set in a lot of competition. And in order to have the big numbers, you have to advertise yourself through good grades. And so teaching stopped. Learning stopped.
Teaching continued, but learning stopped.
Learning stopped.
Yeah. So we have teaching. So the level of teaching is high.
Yes.
But the level of learning
is low.
Low or average.
So actually, learning was not taking place, because you will see somebody is all out. They're given tests. That's why you find schools eventually started giving what they call as beginning of term, mid-term, and end of term. Then in primary, it started having test set 1, set 2, up to set 50 in one paper.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? You just, even they go and buy papers from other schools, which are said to be passing very well. So I buy paper and I have not taught. What am I assessing the students on at the beginning of the term? You have not taught. If you are to assess, you must first teach and learn. When did the students learn? During holidays that you are coming to assess them at the beginning of term. So that was, I think, one way, first of all, okay, for the school proprietors to make people come back and bring school fees.
It's so that they can run their schools. Oh, let us keep it right there. And we will wait to hear from you. For now, we sign out. You've heard it from Dr. Droti Asile James. You as a Ugandan, what are you going to do to ensure that we achieve the kind of Uganda that we want? My name is Malans Robert. The Uganda we want. So mu Uganda gye twagala mu lutalo olw'okulwanyisa obulabbayo obukenuzi nze kyempita obuvundu. Munna Uganda alina okuba nga yeenyigiramu.
Ffenna twenyigire mu lutalo.
Ate abalala tebasomye kuzimba wabula bayize okuzimba.
Uganda gye twagala okulaba ng'enguudo zonna nkole nungi, public transport nga weeri.
Kati eno gavumenti eriwo erina akabonero ka Lucifer. Buli kyotunulako mu Uganda kiriko oxygen. Either babika amawulire malungi oba mawulire mabi. Minister teyeetagisa kabangali budde buno. Zaki?
At this time, why should somebody import furniture from outside Uganda? Let us leave NRM to be in charge for another 36 years or more.
I really want to see a Uganda that believes in the rule of law. If you have a constitution in place, follow it to the letter. Don't change laws just because you want them to favor you.
Kuba njagala omanye nti obugagga bwonna Uganda bwe yeeyagaliramu buyita waffe ku ttaka lyaffe. Naye busoga mugidibaze.
How can a referral hospital refer you to a private clinic? The Uganda we want, buli muntu ateekwa okumanya nti I am a stakeholder, nkwatibwako si kwesuulira nagamba.
Uganda oyinza okukakana nga mwe muyina ba graduates aba university nga bangi okusinga e Bungereza. Mwe mu focusinga nnyo ku degree. Eri bo ba focusinga nnyo nti byensomye mbijjeemu omulimu n'enkola.
We are dreaming of a Uganda where at a young age there is such a relationship between parent and son, parent and daughter, where the daughter can say, this is what I want.
Uganda gye twagala empya tesobola kubeerawo nga tewali mateeka. Amateeka agakola.
The Uganda we want. Wano ku Dream TV